Well, let's talk to the immediate past Director General of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu. And joining me live via Skype is another head of research at Budget, Ojiugbo Uche. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much.
Oh, let me start with the ladies. I said ladies first. Now, what is your reaction to these GDP figures? Looking very good compared to what we have in the entire year, 1.91 in 2018, and this time around is looking very good, 2.27. What do you make of this?
Yes, as you rightfully said, this is not only one of the strongest quarterly GDP growths, but also in terms of year terms since 2016. So definitely something to commend and something of hope. Now, in terms of, I know you mentioned a bunch of figures around the nominal GDP growth per sectors. Now, the sectorial view is really where, there are questions. And what we need to look at, even at the sectorial view, is the real GDP growth. And in that place, we actually see that in real terms, certain sectors are contracting, such as the trade, right? So the trade actually shrunk in this year by 0.38%, in negative growth, as well as the real estate market, which also shrunk. So I mean, for me, in terms of the overarching message, it is definitely positive. But then, in terms of certain sectors.
Okay, let me go to Abuja now. Doc, let me ask Dr. Chijioke this question now. Dr. Chijioke, many say this is a step in the right direction, slow but sustained economic growth. I don't know how that comes to you, immediate past DG.
Yeah, it's a positive indication. And because it's positive, we just have to say congratulations. But of course, for us, we know that the growth that we experienced in the last quarter of 2019 was as a result of the festive period, where many businesses will just grow and demand will increase, supply will increase. So that was actually responsible. Historically, you also see that the last quarters of every year are usually highest amongst every other quarter. So we expected that it will be as high. Well, what that means is that it shouldn't make us rejoice so much because we already know what has happened. So what have we been experiencing at the beginning of this particular year? We have experienced a situation where the inflation rate has increased. We have experienced a situation where the exchange rate has increased. And we're also experiencing the fact that the finance bill has been introduced, and so we expect that people are going to be paying more for goods and services. In the next 1 month, for example, people are also going to be paying more for electricity. So what that means is that we need to watch every single situation to ensure that we indeed will be growing as we expect to grow.
Okay, Ojiugbo, if I have Ojiugbo, I'd like to ask Ojiugbo this next question. Now, you talked about some sectors contracting, and research now shows that some sectors that contributed to growth includes ICT, agriculture, and manufacturing. What do you make of this?
Supported by the numbers. Indeed, in terms of the agriculture, in terms of the ICT, right, that is, the sector that had the biggest component of the GDP, which saw the strongest growth, right? So that's the only sector that actually has more than 10% of the total GDP composition that grew beyond two digits with a growth of 11%. So I think there really it's probably also buoyed up by this by the Q4 season, but also definitely something great happening there. In terms of agriculture sector as well, that shows also that certain investments that have been made in the agriculture sector is also paying off, which is encouraging. So as I think I heard from my colleague, the colleague also on the phone, is that then it's about looking forward and understanding those that are contracting, how do we kind of stop that? And in terms of those that have shown significant growth, how do we maintain that growth trajectory into this coming year? Especially with kind of the latest right now. Of course, IMF isn't perfect, but especially with the latest IMF downgrading of their projections to 2% for Nigeria's growth, given kind of the potentially coronavirus-induced slump in oil prices. So yes, to keep the steam ahead where we are seeing growth, and to stem the reduction and the contraction in other areas.
All right, let me throw this to Abuja now. Now, Mr. Chijoke, a lot of talks about what we should expect in 2020. And I heard the head of the National Bureau of Statistics saying that some projections by IMF looks like they're underestimating the Nigerian economy, that I think the projections are quite too conservative for us. They are saying that Nigeria could do better this year. With all of the shocks that might happen with the coronavirus and all of the issues affecting volatility of oil, how do you see this playing out in 2020?
Of growth of the economy, I don't have any doubt that we'll continue to grow. Even when we have serious insecurities situations in the country, especially in the north. That insecurity is a major bane in the development of this country. But it's also interesting to know that the growth we have experienced in the last quarter of 2019, a lot of it, over 90%, came from non-oil sector. So, but to the extent of the revenue expectation of the country, yes, we expect that our revenue may deplete and also reduce. And because we are seeing oil price responding to low demand, in which case demand for the oil is just dropping and that's affecting the price, that may affect our revenue base, and that will also affect many other things. But since we know the volatility in that sector, all we need to do is just to have the competitive advantage we have in the non-oil sector and make sure that those sectors in the non-oil area grow. And we are already doing well in agriculture, we are doing well in technology, we are doing well in many other places. So what we need to do is to identify these sectors that can respond positively within a very short period, and pushing a lot of our efforts in those areas in order for us to play down on the possible volatility of the oil price, so that when the shock comes, it will not affect us adversely.
Indeed, doctor is telling us how to take precautions there. I'm going to ask Ojiugbo the same question. Ojiugbo, looking ahead, a lot of projections. Many are saying that IMF kind of underestimating projections, talking about figures coming into Nigeria, that we could do better than that. Looking at all of the economic issues, even globally, how do you see this playing out for Nigeria in 2020? Ease of doing business is also on one side, where government is trying to make things easier by the day. But how do you see it working side by side as we move on?
Yeah, I think it's important to also note that for Nigeria, Nigeria also kind of became more conservative as well in 2020, in their 2020 projection for GDP. And that was, without the coronavirus situation at hand, right? Where we had, 3.5% projected growth in our 2019 budget. The government downgraded that to, 2.9% growth for this coming year. Again, without this, new threat on the ground. So I think while it is definitely good to be hopeful, I think ultimately it's about, in terms of looking at what is happening in the world, and indeed what the projection is out there, it is to understand that really there are shocks that potentially will be coming to Nigeria, and just to have that in mind as something to really push against, right? So again, especially because we ourselves have also been more conservative, right? Not only in downgrading or bringing down our projections, GDP growth projections in the budget, But if you look at also what the ERGP also projected for 2020 was 7%, and that is a lot less than what the budget and the government is aiming for in 2020.
I'm taking it on that note of the economic recovery and growth plan. That's what I'm going to Dr. Chijioke to make his position known. We've been talking about this very beautiful document. But at this moment, are we still in tune with the implementation of this beautiful document that was presented some time ago?
That document, like you described, is a beautiful document. We saw a very good effort made then by the government to make sure the implementation was right. But it looks like the momentum we saw at the early stage is beginning to drop. It's beginning to drop because the drive has reduced and we're not seeing so much of that drive happening. Of course, it's expected that there will be some other external factors that will be affecting that effort made by government. As much as possible, they have carried on with desired parastatals that actually will make the difference. They have actually carried along private sector to make sure the thing works. But the outcome is what we really have not seen, and the good result coming out from there is what we're not seeing. But of course, we can give it to that document and the implementation process. The fact that the little growth we have seen is also as a result, partly as a result of the implementation of that document. I can only tell government and all the parties involved to work harder and probably fine-tune and re-engineer it to see the areas that are working and the areas that are not working. And of course, change certain decisions to ensure that we get good results from that beautiful document.
I'll do a follow-up. Ojiugbo, some say the figures in that document is very ambitious. I don't know if that comes to you that way.
Yes, the figures were ambitious, but I think it was necessary, right? We were at the point of recession, and it was necessary to, I feel, to dream big. There's nothing quote-unquote wrong with that. Now, in terms of falling short of those targets, right, indeed, the target for 2019 GDP growth in the ERGP was 4.5%, which obviously we fell far short of. But I think in terms of the trend, right, that we did see kind of a recovery, right, with this GDP in 2019, full year GDP being the highest since the recession period. Now, of course, right, the ERGP is coming to an end this year, and it is that philosophical question of how do you, when planning, how do you maintain realism while also being ambitious and visioning, right, in an audacious way? Because I think there needs to be kind of that combination of both, right? You can't be overly cautious when you're dreaming, right? You have to have a big, audacious goal. Of course, implementation also has to follow suit. Really looking at how we can protect ourselves from the shocks of the oil industry, because we're so reliant on that. That needs to be, more prioritized. That is already been, but even more so prioritized. So in terms of whether it's ambitious or not, I think, yes, it was ambitious. We did not meet it. Now, in moving forward, let's, vision something ambitious but realistic and implement in a way that actually makes us realize those.
All right, Dr. Chijioke, a final word from you. Expectations moving on in 2020, particularly from the fiscal side.
Expectations from the fiscal side is that I want a situation there has to be common goal achieved between the fiscal and the monetary policy. You see, many times the decisions taken by the fiscal policy adversely will affect negatively the monetary policy. So those two policymakers must work together to have a common goal. Their decisions and their policy making should not work against themselves. And I also expect that the state governments should have a buy-in in everything we're talking about at the federal level, because this economy they are also part of the economy, and the people that are supposed to benefit from this economy also reside in these states. And so, as government is making all the efforts at the federal level, the states should actually copy or develop their own business plan on how to grow their own economies, so that collectively we'll have an aggregate goal of having our figures rise up and create employment all over the country.
All right, thank you. Made it fast. Director General of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Ikechukwu Chioge, thank you for your time. Joining us from Abuja, and Ojiugbo Uche, who's the head and lead analyst for Budget Nigeria. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for joining us on Business Nigeria.